All righty. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Morgan Starr. I'm a volunteer with Volunteer Blue. And on behalf of Volunteer Blue and our many partner organizations, I'd like to welcome you. We are so delighted that you could join us today for what will be a great discussion with Bill McKibben on our future and what is on the ballot this fall. As we know, the midterms are coming up and it is so important. Before I introduce you to our speaker, I'd like to give a little background on Volunteer Blue. We are an organization that connects volunteers with 40 plus grassroots organizations working to flip Congress in 2026. And so we have so many different partners that you can get involved with. And throughout this training tonight, we will be sharing different ways that you can get involved and take action in addition to all the great work that I know you're all already doing. But without further ado, I would love to jump in to our speaker and introduce him. I'm really excited to introduce Bill McKibben, an author, educator, and climate advocate who is the founder of 350.org, the first planet-wide grassroots climate change movement, and Third Act, which organizes people over the age of 60 for action on climate and justice. He has helped build one of the largest grassroots climate movements in history and continues to inspire all of us to take action. Bill, thank you for being here with us tonight. The floor is yours.
Morgan, thank you so much, and what a pleasure to be with everybody, and especially to see so many of my Third Act colleagues on this call, people chiming in from all across the country. So many thanks, Morgan, to you, to Michael, to everybody else who makes this effort work. I'm not going to talk for very long, 10 minutes at most, just to try and get across why I think the stakes are well, we keep talking about the most important election of all time every 2 years, but I'm afraid this one may be. And I want to give you a couple of reasons for that. The two things that we work hard on at Third Act are protecting our climate and protecting our democracy. And those are the two things I think above all that are up for grabs in 2026. Let's talk about the climate first. Um, we obviously live at a very difficult moment. The temperature is already higher than it's ever been in human history. We've driven it that way by pouring lots of carbon and methane into the atmosphere. And now we're about to see it go higher still. The El Nino that's about to break over our heads is going to be a powerful reminder to everyone that there is no real way to beat physics and chemistry, that they are going to have the last word. We are going to see temperatures higher than humans have ever witnessed before. And with it will come another dose of the kind of chaos that we're already seeing, the floods and fires. I was just in Altadena, California, my hometown, though I haven't lived there for a long time. I was just there to do some reporting on the aftermath of the great fires of 2025. So much has happened in the last 18 months that those have kind of gone into the memory hole, but man, was it shocking to see what remains of the 9,000 homes that burned down in that community. All of this happening, paradoxically, while we finally have a real and powerful weapon to use in the climate fight, the sudden advent of cheap, clean energy. 5 years ago or so, we passed some invisible line where it became cheaper to produce energy from the sun and the wind than from setting stuff on fire. Around the rest of the world, people are seizing on that opportunity. China is building huge amounts of clean energy, but now many, many other countries are following their lead. Even more so after this spring, our war in Iran has reminded everyone that though sunlight travels 93 million miles to reach the Earth, none of those miles go through the Strait of Hormuz, which turns out to be a great boon and beneficence. Um, this would be good news if our political system wasn't owned at the moment by people who own oil wells and coal mines. And those people are doing everything they can to block the clean energy revolution in America. And the last 18 months have been just insane. We've tried to stop wind farms that are 90% complete off the coast of New England. We've put all federal land off limits to solar power, on and on and on, in a just shameful attempt to privilege the people who provided donations to get the GOP in power. You'll remember President candidate Trump saying to oil executives, "Give me $1 billion and I'll give you anything that you want." That's how it works unless we stand up and stop it. So this year, this election is an extraordinary chance to begin to reverse that tide. The polling shows not only that people are quite scared of climate change, as they should be, but more that they fundamentally understand the need and the potential for this transition to energy from the sun and the wind and batteries, and what that could mean, not just for the climate, but for people's pocketbooks, because as I say, this is the cheapest energy humans have ever known. Give you an example. Beginning 3 weeks ago in Australia, they've built so much renewable energy capacity that now every Australian gets 3 free hours of electricity between noon and 3 every afternoon. Imagine what that would do to people's affordability and cost of living. And there's no reason that we can't have that here, save the obstruction of the fossil fuel industry and their bought and paid for politicians. We have to win those fights. But the other thing that Third Act works on is democracy and its protection. And this election is at least as crucial for that. Um, I, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that if things go badly this fall, we may not have another chance in quite the same way. We're walking a very perilous line now as we watch the president and his team dismantle all the institutions and norms that have governed American political life to this point. There have been plenty of presidents I didn't like before in my life, and plenty of congressmen and things that I thought, but I've never been in a period that seemed anything like this. And I am not alone. To sort of test our sense of the world, we asked many of the oldest members of Third Act earlier this spring to record some videos. We particularly asked people who had reached the age of 83 or above, because since our country is celebrating its 250th birthday, if you're 83, you've been around for 1/3 of official American history, which gives you, we think, a kind of credible baseline against which to judge the present moment. And what people told us was a mixture of indignation and sadness at a political moment that seems so different and so out of touch with what's come before. One video came from a 94-year-old woman who said, "When I was 4, I watched my sister die from polio. How do you think I feel watching the destruction of our public health system?" But on and on and on. And people understood that at the deepest level, this was about the destruction of democracy, about our ability to run our own government, make our own choices, that we're being led in a very different direction now. So we have to elect people this fall who will stand up to that, who will try and interpose themselves in the way of that deep anti-democratic push, small d anti-democratic. And it is entirely possible that we can win on both these counts because the vast majority of people are with us. Look, when we talk about climate and energy, Third Act this spring, since it was no use working in Washington, concentrated our work on state legislatures, and we got 10 of them to pass this balcony solar enabling law, making it possible for the first time for people to use the smallest, cheapest forms of solar energy. We got it through 10 legislatures in one spring, and that's because there's enormous public support for clean energy. And there's enormous public support for democracy, too. We just have to help people realize that these are the things that are on the ballot. If we do, this could be a moment of extraordinary political shift and opportunity. I got to say, there are things happening this fall that excite me in really remarkable ways. Among other things, I think that we're going to have, for the first time in a long time, a really important discussion about what Christianity means in American politics in the 21st century. And it's a discussion that's being led by James Tallarico in Texas. There are lots of other important discussions like that underway, and you can be a very large part of those discussions. That's what we're here to talk about tonight, how you can get involved in this work. We need you phone banking and doing the other work that comes with democracy. And I will we'll talk more about it in a minute, but I'll just say it's an extraordinary privilege to get to do that work. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable the first time you call somebody, but once you start doing it, you start realizing that there are lots of people who want to be someone to talk to about what they're thinking about America right now, and who feel empowered when you give them that opportunity. And we've gotten all these organizations quite good at figuring out how this works. Um, so we'll get back to this in a minute as we talk about the specifics of all of this. But let me just finish by saying um, I'm spending every minute this spring, summer, fall out in the red and purple districts of the country, because I'm absolutely convinced that there are lots and lots and lots of people who understand what's at stake. And I think that we can mobilize enough of them to turn things around, but it's going to take all of us pitching in as hard as we can going forward. Um, it's an opportunity. The polling looks pretty good, but that has to be turned into on the ground reality, and it's only real people who can do that. And you're the real people in question.
Thank you so much for those words. And yes, we are the people that can do that, and we know that we can do that together. So just wanted to take some time to kind of gather questions that you may all have in the chat. Please drop those there. We're happy to answer as many as we can. And while we're gathering those questions, thank you all for the cheers and thank you so much, Bill. We want to direct everyone to sign up today for an action. As Bill mentioned, it is so important that we participate in phone banks, canvassing opportunities, training sessions, and more. So please take this chance now to sign up. There's no better time like the present. And just so you all know, we are launching a new concentrated effort to mobilize in red congressional districts. Any volunteer from anywhere can call friendly Democrats in these districts and urge them to become volunteers in their own local areas. These local volunteers will then turn to work to boost out Democratic turnout in the midterms in these really important swing districts. This is really the most important action that remote volunteers can take for the November elections. And our volunteers are already making these calls and really enjoying them. So we want to make sure that you click on the link that says recruit volunteers in key districts, as well as on the link that says visit our Red District Project actions. They should both be in the chat from our friend Linda there. So thank you so much for those. And you can also use the QR code on the screen to get a complete listing of our links to these actions and others. You can scan that QR code with your phone, or you could take a screenshot of it and look at it later. But with that, we would love to now pass it back to Bill to answer some of your questions. Thanks to everyone who submitted some thoughtful questions. I'm going to kick it off with the first one, which you touched on this a little bit, that we've been hearing affordability is really one of the top issues this election cycle. How do you really make the pitch for people that the climate crisis is very much related to affordability as well as all other issues.
Yes, very good question. Um, and it allows me to talk a little bit about red districts too. Uh, Look, the of the 18 states in the country with the highest use of renewable energy, 15 of them have the lowest electric rates in the country, including the top five most affordable electric states in the country, are all on that list of the top states using renewable energy. That helps people understand what's possible here. And it also helps us understand just how fluid some of these political boundaries can be, because most of those states are red states, and many of them in the Midwest with heavy reliance on wind power. And these are places where it's people completely understand how silly it is what the federal government has been doing around energy policy. There are lots and lots of places where that's true. I'm talking to you tonight from a red district, Elise Stefanik's district in upstate New York, New York 21. But I think it's a district that we may flip this fall because the because because the Republican candidate, as in many cases now, is so far to the right extreme that it's beginning to shake people up. Uh, you can go look at his videos, his rap videos that are including some where he just chants the word Trump over and over and over again. It's not exactly rap, it's more like a mantra or something. Um, and he's up against a farmer, a dairy farmer from upstate New York, who's a decent and sensible guy, and I think completely capable of winning the district, even though it's been Republican for a long time. And the same is true in place after place. I've lived my whole life in rural America at the end of dirt roads, and I can tell you, I have lots of neighbors who may not have always voted the same way that I do, but they often have solar panels on the roof, less because of their feelings about climate change and more about the fact that, like, my home is my castle, and it's a better castle if it has its own power supply. And I mean, that's not why I put solar panels all over my roof, but I'm American enough to feel that too. And I think it's those kind of common and shared impulses that we need to be reaching out to. Uh, uh, this is one of these elections where freedom and liberty and things should cut the right way if we figure out how to talk about them. And that's why this Red District project is of such interest to me, because if you're calling to get volunteers from people who are committed Democrats in those places, trust me, they will be grateful to hear from you, because they often feel a little isolated and alone. And they are very eager to, on many cases, to be able to connect and to do the kind of work that offers real change for their communities.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm in a red district as well in Pennsylvania right now. And so thank you so much for that answer. We've had a few questions about smaller communities and what can we do to either work on things like recycling or any forms of other renewable energy, things like that.
Well, renewable energy really is the key here. It's the most important environmental project ever, replacing fossil fuel combustion with energy from the sun and the wind. And we can actually do a lot at the local level. I outlined those balcony solar projects that we got through 10 state legislatures. That leaves us 40 to go. And there's lots of work still to be done. We also have been hard at work on an important initiative to make it easier to put rooftop solar, bigger projects on people's homes. At the moment, Americans pay 3 to 5 times as much as Europeans or Australians for solar on their roofs. Not because the panels are more expensive, even with tariffs, they're a marginal part of all of this. It's because we have too much bureaucracy here. We have 15,000 jurisdictions in this country. Each one of them has its own building department that would like to get up on your roof and look at things. In the rest of the world, buying a solar system is like buying a refrigerator. You call somebody up on Monday, by Wednesday, they're up on the roof installing it. By Friday, it's connected to the grid. That's why 40% of homes in Australia have solar panels. And that in turn is why Australia has free electricity for people every afternoon. So we've got to get on that. We've managed to pass these laws allowing for instant permitting in California and New Jersey, and we need them passed lots of other places. But you can do it at the municipal level too, in place after place. And we need to remember that our cities and our states do have significant degrees of sovereignty and power here. And we're going to need to lean on that more and more in this moment of desperate federal overreach. So I think those questions are really important. It's why, for instance, we organized Third Act the way that we did with big working groups in most states, because we understand that we need both power at that state level, and we also need to be able to knit people together now and again for big national campaigns.
Yeah, and on that point, someone asked if they should really focus more on kind of local climate policies or look at national climate policies in their organizing work.
It depends on when it is. This year, we can't do anything in Washington until we change the cast of characters that's inhabiting Washington. So this year, what we've got to do is elect some good people to the House and the Senate, and we've got to repeat that in 2028 to the House and the Senate and the White House. And then we have to have those people go to work to bring back the kind of policies we've lost, or to come up with the new ones that fit the moment. In the meantime, along with that work at the federal level, we also have to do a lot of work at the state and local level. And that's why down ballot races are super important this year, too. I just got off 20 minutes ago a phone call to get people out phone banking in the Georgia Public Service Commission race in the fall. There's a very good chance that progressives will win 3 of the 5 seats on Georgia's Public Service Commission, which in turn would put them in charge of energy policy for one of the most important states in the country. We won a huge fight like this spring in Arizona with the elections to the board of the Salt River Project, the second biggest utility, where we overcame the concerted efforts of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA and managed to elect a pro clean energy majority on that crucial board. So there's a lot that can be done at all kinds of levels, while we're also trying to get back control, trying to get back, let's be clear, trying to get back sanity into our national government. That's vital too, because we really do need Washington at work in order to move with the speed that physics and chemistry are demanding on the climate crisis. And I'll just add, by by this time next year, once El Nino has had its way with us, the appetite for climate action as we head into the next election in 2028 is going to be higher than it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had another question come in about what are some of the best ways to fight to protect our public lands and wilderness, especially since we've seen the Trump administration specifically attack this area.
Well, there's almost nothing closer to my heart. I live on the fence line of the Green Mountain National Forest in Vermont, and so I take um, great exception to what the federal government is doing at the moment as they try to sell off public lands. And I mean, just last week, they radically shrunk by 90% the size of Bears Ears and Escalante national monuments in Utah. They've opened up every inch, apparently, of federal land in this country to people riding off-road vehicles. they're getting rid of the roadless rule so that they can punch new roads through wilderness. This is another place where the politics are very, very interesting. Early on in the Trump administration, one of the only losses that they suffered was on this particular issue. And it's because environmentalists joined with hunters and fishermen to say, no, these are the lands that define America for us. We don't want you messing around with them. And at the beginning, that was enough to hold them back, but they becoming more degenerate with each passing month and figuring out new and improved ways to try and wreck one of the crown jewels of America, our system of national lands, of public parks. We read now even that they're robbing the national park maintenance budget in order to keep fixing and then fixing again and then fixing again the beloved reflecting pool in the center of DC. So we really need to be reminding candidates just how much we love America's outdoors and just how much we want them to keep their paws off of it.
Yes, we definitely do, especially it's been, in the summer especially, I think about that a lot. And so, what strategies have worked well for you in Third Act when organizing volunteers age 60 and above?
Well, it just turns out that those of us who've reached a certain age are, no shade, Morgan, but we're the best volunteers of all at all this stuff. Um, um, and it's because, we have a lifetime of skills and of connections and networks. And it's because politicians fear us. And why do they fear us? Because there is no known way to stop old people from voting. And so they know that we will be turning out and that they ignore us at their peril. And so the incredible amount of time and energy and skill that older Americans have invested through Third Act over the last 5 years never fails to humble me. Our biggest precept, of course, is to back up young people and to figure out how to make sure that young people get heard and, in many cases, get elected. One of the things we think is that it's important to be very politically engaged for older people, but that does not mean that we have to occupy every seat in the House and Senate until the end of time. There's nothing we enjoy more than helping great new young voices emerge, back them up. And sometimes we sometimes we try and tell the people who've hung on a little bit too long that they can still stay politically involved. They don't just have to run for office. They can come join us and do effective work from the sidelines as well. So I I have loved engaging those of my generation in this work. And I will say as I end that I think we have a kind of unfair advantage here. And I'm kind of looking at Michael and Sarah as I think about this. It's because if you're in your third act now, it means that your first act was in that period of social and cultural and political transformation of the 1960s and the 1970s, the apex of the civil rights movement, the moment when we started taking women seriously in public life, the first Earth Day when 20 million Americans were out in the streets. We have a kind of muscle memory of that, and we know, crucially, that it can work. We know that within 18 months after Earth Day, we got the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act and the EPA and all the things the Trump administration is still trying to gut. I feel very bad for young people today because I think it's harder for them to believe that all this kind of work might actually lead somewhere. Um, and I think it's absolutely incumbent on those of us who are older to try and do everything we can, those of us who are nearer the exit than the entrance, to go out in ways that really help preserve options for the people who come after us. I hear a lot and I talk a lot with young people about what sometimes people call climate anxiety and their fears about things. Those are very real and very important, but I think my sense is they're rooted less in sheer terror about what the temperature of the planet is going to be, and more in frustration at the feeling that they've been abandoned to deal with it by themselves. And that's not okay. It's time for all of us to figure out how to be doing this work that in many cases began in our youth and now has to be carried forward in our unyouth. Um, and so, what a pleasure to get to work at Third Act, and what a pleasure to get to work with everybody, including you all. I'll just finish that conversation by saying um, sometimes young people are a little cynical about this, and they'll say to me, some variation on "Okay, boomer," um, at which point I just nod and smile because I know what they're getting at. But I will sometimes say, uh, 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 if you say nothing else, our generation did produce the greatest music of all time. So we're looking forward to playing lots of it at the party on the night of November 3rd. We can mix in some Beyonce and stuff, but there's going to be lots of Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye and whatever else when the moment comes that we're find that good people are back in control of at least some of the levers of power in our nation's capital.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Bill. What a way to end. And I completely agree that we need everyone in this fight. And I think as someone who works in youth organizing, I've been able to learn so much from leaders like you in Third Act and Michael with Volunteer Blue and so many others. So thank you so much for everything you are doing and for taking the time to come speak with us and answer all of these questions. I'd also like to thank everyone for joining us on this evening. It is because of all of you that we are going to help save this democracy and win in November. So we are going to put the QR code back up on the screen if you need it. But for now, we want to say good night. We will be following up with links. And once again, want to thank you, Bill McKibben, for joining us this evening.
Take care, all.